Okay. We're going to begin in three, two, one. Welcome, everyone, to 106 in Mass podcast. My name is Wayne Jackson. I am your host, and today we are fortunate to have with us two very important people on the UCF campus. Miss Anne Marie Palmer, who's the Associate Director of Student Care Services, and Dr. Tamara Walden, who's a counselor in our CAPS department, which is Counseling and Psychological Services. First of all, let me say thank you for being with us today. We appreciate you spending time. One of the things that we are trying to do, especially with this particular event here, this podcast, is trying to help students cope with what is going on. We have all been living through a pandemic for the past year. Um, it's the first time I've lived through a pandemic. And so, as an older adult, trying to navigate everything that's going on has been difficult. Living in my house most of the day, working from my house most of the day has not been easy. And so I know it hasn't been easy for some of our students. So let's talk about how has this pandemic affected students. Dr. Walden, I'll start with you and then I'll go to Ms. Palmer.
Sure. So I would say in general that there's been a humongous increase of uncertainty for everyone, ourselves included. We didn't know when our resources would be available. We also didn't know, I remember at the very beginning, a year ago, we were like washing everything that came through the door, washing mail, right? So there was like even this a sense of invisible danger. And so that increased everyone's sensitivity to what they could and couldn't control. And so we saw an influx of anxiety. A lot of times it was just needing reassurance and needing some connection of like, yeah, we're all going through this, we'll all make it together. So we saw a lot of influx of anxiety related issues. And if you already had an existing anxiety disorder, and by the way, anxiety is the number one most common complaint presenting issue that comes to our CAPS doors. So to give you a ballpark, we probably have one or two groups for like depression, but we probably make available 6 groups for anxiety. Like it is our most common thing, which makes sense because students are coming to college and they're adjusting to new challenges, new landscapes. They don't know where their resources are. They're trying to get everything together. So it makes sense that the lack of certainty, the lack of familiarity is going to come in. So that was increased. And then as we were restricted to our homes or restricted with what we're able to do, we really were not sure how to manage this. And one of the things that I talk a lot about in a majority of my sessions is how we think a lot about the future or the past. And there's so many things about the future that are uncertain that we can drown in those thoughts. We can try to think about what's the best approach when we don't really know. And so a lot of anxiety management strategies already are just helping you come into the moment and helping you connect you through your body, through your breathing, and to spend less of your energy trying to plan or event plan something that you're not even sure of. And a lot of times we'll do that. And then we will find out, oh, the university is not going to be offering this, or the university is going to offer this, but not this, or these classes here, or this restaurant is closed, or I'm not going to be able to do my graduation, right? Like all of these things that we don't know or we're not certain of. We will make all these plans and then something bigger than us will come in and make these changes. So we'll be exhausted from plans that we didn't even really have the ability to make. So it's learning to kind of sit with the uncertainty and connect to the moment and find new and innovative ways to have some casual play, have some casual downtime. I encourage a resource that we all have is like walking. Even just I tell people like I walk to the mail multiple times because to get my mail because it's just a great break. But while I'm walking, I notice I'll put these dishes away, or I'll organize this, or start a load of laundry, or I'll send a couple of emails. Is that there's this reality that the way that the body works is that motivation is first and then we act, but actually motivation comes from action. So if we start moving, if we start acting and doing even things that don't really require a lot of heavy decision making, then we'll find we're ready to do other things. And we find without even having to think about it, I've already done 4 or 5 things that don't require a lot of energy just from getting up and moving my body. And this isn't like working a sweat movement. This isn't going to lift weights. That feels like another big decision. But there's a lot of decision making that we're making without moving our bodies, without moving the spaces we're in. And so those are some of the ways that we can compensate for that. I also encourage students and myself as well to not have like a head. We spend so much time in our brains that sometimes it's even difficult to fall asleep. So don't put a lot of really high stakes decisions that you have to make all in one day. I say start with some of the easy stuff, wait till you're more energized or you have time to maybe talk with someone close to you before you make some of those decisions. But when it comes to your everyday life, try to create a routine. It's really arbitrary what the routine is. It's just for you. It is just for you to take the decision making energy out of it. So whether you get up every day and walk and drink the same coffee or blah 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 or pick out the same clothes, it's just kind of reserving that energy making decision that often can lead us into more anxiety and apathy. So anxiety's been increased, and those are some common ways. But also, I think the apathy once you kind of get stuck, where you're like, I'm caught in my thoughts. I didn't sleep well. I don't feel rested. I feel fatigued. The apathy and depression symptoms are also something to look at that are forms of stress. And again, I say sometimes you start moving without feeling like moving, and that in itself will take care of ourselves. So find ways to connect to your body directly and communicate to your body directly. So getting up and getting your heart rate up, breathing deeply, trying different breathing techniques is a direct way to communicate with your body without utilizing thoughts. Even laughing is huge. Watching something that lifts your spirits, humor and laugh is a major intervention, a physical intervention. If you have people you're close with that you live with, physical touch, affection, connection, going for a walk together without relying on words is another really great way to use our bodies to come into the moment. And my son, sometimes we don't really talk. We just have like tickle fest or we play hide it, like we call it wrestling, and wrestling and snuggling. And sometimes it's all he needs. He doesn't need like, you can do this, baby, or don't worry, I know you're tired. He needs like 20 minutes of unadulterated us not being able to breathe because we're wrestling and tickling each other. And then we go back and do our thing. So finding what works for each of you, and it doesn't require more of that kind of brain energy that like all of our events are and all of our ways of meeting people are now through Zoom reservations and through, but finding ways that we can casually connect safely to the people who are in our pod or who are in our neighborhood is a really great strategy. And I haven't, I also like to be like, yeah, let's honor the challenges. That's ones, but we also have to look at the new things that I never really would have had access to if we weren't in this situation. So I have really great connections with my neighbors in ways that I never had. I would really see them. I was always getting home, we would see each other when we get home from work and maybe on the weekends. But now I have such great connections. Like someone's watched my child once, and I've watched kids. We had an outdoor, really safe COVID birthday party for my son in October. It was really nice to be able to do those things that I wouldn't have even thought of. So still continue to keep your eyes open for new gifts that having to kind of be in this way can help us. And I think that's a big part of understanding we're in this together. We'll get through this together. Lessening our expectation for perfection is huge. I was trying to think of like, what are some of the common things I work through, Anne Marie, in session? And it's like in our minds, we build something to have to be and look a certain way. And when we actually move and do it, it's like, oh, this was good enough just doing this. And I'm like, yes, it's good enough to just show up and try, or just fill out this part of the essay, or put this in. It doesn't have to be this whole thing. So trying to really move and approach some of our projects in realistic initial steps at a time really help. And like not expecting perfection or to reinvent the wheel when we approach things, taking away some of that pressure and knowing that like, a B is passing. That's what got me through grad school. B, it's going to get me a PhD too. And it isn't so much that I even only got B's. It was just that it helped get that barrier that was keeping me from working on something. And it actually usually turns out better than what I anticipate. Excellent. So prototype your experience. Prototype. Let beta test. Try something. See how it feels, and then decide. Don't stay still and try to figure it out all in your head. go and try things and then see how it feels.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Anne Marie, what have you seen from your office in regards to how this pandemic has affected our students?
Sure, thank you. So our office is a little bit different than our counseling center. So I'd like to always kind of explain how counseling and student care services differ, since our students sometimes overlap or get them confused.
Yeah.
We offer students non-clinical support. So we're not the student's therapist. We don't enter a therapeutic relationship with the student, but our job is to try to help students connect with resources, identify barriers, help to break down those barriers, and do some wraparound care. Now, we do work really closely with our CAPS partners, our student health services partners, victim services, and all of the other helping areas at UCF and also in our community, because our students' needs sometimes go beyond the scope of what the university can provide. We're still always there as a constant to provide some of that wraparound care, and make sure that students don't feel lost or overwhelmed in navigating all of these different things, because there's so many different things going on in everybody's life. Nobody is just one issue or one problem. Everything kind of blends together. So we try to know a little bit about everything and meet people where they need to be. So of course, the pandemic kind of threw people's life choices and plans and everything into upheaval. And so we definitely saw a lot of challenges on the front end of things that, um, we, in some ways we were equipped to manage because we already had some of the services in place, but of course everything magnified. So we work with students that are having financial crisis, academic challenges, of course, mental health distress as well. So we were thankful that, our counseling and our health partners continued to operate remotely. And so we were able to continue working together to coordinate care. But so many of our students had unexpected financial crisis. A lot of students work in the tourism industry, hotels, restaurants, Disney, the theme park. So when people were furloughed or had unexpected job loss, of course, that impacted their ability to continue in their education, to meet their living requirements. We had so many people whose families have been impacted, and so the
Mm.
larger scale of that then impacting students themselves is heartbreaking to hear. Especially when people had a good plan of support, and unexpected things sometimes throw that off. So thankfully, there have been different kinds of emergency funds and creative ways to help students still continue their education. But that has also been a challenge. We've had so many students that weren't prepared or planning to take classes remotely, had to kind of pick up and go home back to their home state or hometown. And so we had to kind of quickly regroup our infrastructure of support too, where students needed to tap into their local services instead of using things at UCF, because they couldn't just walk down the street and pop into an office. So some of that familiarity with being able to use the support network that they've already had was gone. And I think students are, as Dr. Walden said, starting to get the Zoom fatigue and the exhaustion of just navigating remote services. We're happy that some of our support is back to face, and we're able to meet students here. But we still have students trying to navigate things from home and continue in online only classes. And so trying to just continue to help students focus on the essentials. Like Dr. Walden said, that doesn't have to be perfect. We got to kind of get through and keep making progress at this point. So the finances, the unexpected impacts there, of course, were huge for our office in the beginning. And then, thankfully, a lot of students have been able to stabilize, find other employment, or get extra support. But now we're still seeing the ongoing mental health components. People are missing their friends. They're missing out on some of the
Yeah.
experiences they were planning to have, and that human touch, where it's not so easy to replace that with some of the options that we've come up with. And so, it's nice to see our students coming back to residence halls and coming back to Orlando and finding creative ways to engage with each other safely on campus. And so we're trying to make sure that they still know the mental health support is going to be essential, and that it's still important to engage in different techniques and speaking with licensed professionals. Friends can be good, but sometimes having that safe space is essential too. And we're seeing more and more students kind of willing to open up and talk with each other and talk with professionals when they do need support. So just making sure people find the right fit for them and helping the students advocate for themselves in that process. So there's a lot of resources here, but if you're not feeling well, it's hard to kind of sit down and figure all that out on your own. So we try to at least help guide people in the right direction.
So, Anne Marie, let me just follow up with that. So, what are some, say, for example, I'm not familiar with student care services. Can you just briefly describe some of the services students can receive if they were to come to your office?
Sure. So right now our front office operations are open. A student could walk in and talk to a front staff member just to get a better understanding of how to work with us. So if somebody is on campus, they're welcome to do that. We're over in Farrell Commons. But most of our students are calling us and talking to our front staff to figure those pieces out. A lot of what we do is planning with students and creating an action plan for support. So sitting down with somebody from our office means we're going to talk about all the things. Again, it's not going to delve into a therapeutic relationship with the student, but we're there to problem solve, triage, and help them identify what are 2 or 3 things that we can help mitigate or help students advocate for themselves. And so the service with us is really to talk to somebody to start to get connected. And so students don't really know what they need until they start talking to somebody because they just don't know, oh, this could be an option for me, or I didn't realize I was eligible for this program, or that I could access this additional emergency fund. Or they don't even realize that UCF has free counseling services or psychiatry or a victim advocate or a confidential place to call after hours. So just talking to someone that can explain all of the different things depending on what they share with us is a helpful place to start. So that's a lot of what we do, is kind of helping demystify some of the confusion that comes with engaging with services. Or if somebody's like, I'm not in Orlando, or I really want to work with my community, we can help them identify services in their space. So it's really all about reaching out to us, starting to talk to us about what barriers somebody might have, and then our staff can help support that student. So, but it's typically for academic or financial or mental health challenges. Those are kind of the main areas that we feel that we can give good guidance and good referrals for.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Dr. Walden, so for example, a student is having, or they think they're having issues, either stress issues, mental issues. What type of assistance can your office provide, and what recommendations can you give to students to overcome some of the problems they might be having, either due to the pandemic, due to the stress of just classroom work? What are some of the things that you would recommend for students to do?
Well, so for one, I will just say any student can talk to a counselor the same day by just calling our main number, which is, you can find it on our website, but it's 407-823-2811. So they can talk, and depending on what their concern is, they can talk to someone the same day. And even if it's after we're closed, if you press 5 once you hear a recording, you'll get routed to a live person. So if it's like, my roommate's unresponsive and she was drinking, or I haven't heard from my roommate, we will help walk you through that for sure. One of the biggest differences, legally speaking, which I think is important to distinguish between UCF Cares and CAP, is that as a licensed therapist, psychotherapist, I am bound by law. I have more strict confidentiality requirements. And so that without a written authorization from a client, except for times of emergency where they're threatening to hurt themselves or another person, it would break the law for me to speak out for them and advocate for them, which is why UCF Cares is such a great wraparound service. They're non-clinical, so they're not bound by the same HIPAA and Florida law confidentiality. So if it's a student who is not in services with us and they're reaching out and talking to us, we can refer them. We'll walk through them. We can do a lot of stuff if they're in immediate risk and immediate. But in terms of being able to do what UCF Cares does outside of the other areas, logistics, we're really bound. And a lot of students, if they're having struggles, don't want to call their parents, don't want to give us permission to talk about what's happening. So that's why UCF Cares is essential, because there's times where we do have some concerns for some of our friends, and we want to be able to go out and find resources and people who can support them. So when a student comes and calls CAPS, we will help them with what is happening right now to give them mental health support, whatever we can do. If it's urgent, the same day, and they need help, anyone can call. They can talk to someone after hours as well. And then what we would try to do is to try to get them engaged in services with us to help them with whatever it is they're doing. We do really great short-term therapy. So we can really target a part of it or all of the issue that they're coming in with. If it's dealing with motivation so that they can get to classes, or if it's dealing with a roommate conflict, or if it's I'm living at home now because I can't afford. And my parents have a different political belief system and I'm struggling because of this, or my parents are a lot more micromanaging because now they know where I'm at and I'm struggling to deal with the stress of my family and also my own autonomy, right? So we can help them I would say, like from the inside, ways that they can cope, from motivation to learning how to maybe communicate boundaries or to cope with some of the distress of the things they can't control. But in terms of making differences in their lives outside, like helping them find a roommate or looking for a different job or something like that, UCF Cares has some other resources that don't work, that because they're not bound by the same confidentiality. So I would say, call us, talk to us. If it's something that we can do, we're going to tell you all the options. We're going to tell you about our services. We'll try to get you in everything to get into our service, all the paperwork you can do online. If it's something that's better served in UCF Cares, I have called them with the client or given them the number, and they've called and they've been able to get resources. If it's I need additional food, if I'm struggling to pay a bill, if I don't feel safe any longer after I broke up with a partner and I need a safe space to live for a few days or weeks, UCF Cares has been a great resource for that. And we work with them, we refer them. So I wouldn't ever say, don't talk to us, go to UCF Cares. We'd be like, okay, let's make a call together. I've had people from victim services come into my office or get on the phone with me. So for the things that I know are beyond confidentiality, I try to help the student connect directly to those people. That way, I don't have to be the intermediary, because then I'm bound by a level of restriction, or any of the therapists are. So that's the biggest thing, is to know that therapy has much more of a confidential, and it's to keep your stuff private, is to keep your confidentiality private, so you have a safe space to work. Whereas UCF Cares can really work with the logistics, the circumstances and the logistics of your situation versus sort of the mental and emotional parts. So does that kind of answer?
Yes, we're getting ready to come to the end, but I want to speak with Anne Marie about how can someone get in contact with you, and Dr. Walden, I'm gonna come back to you in regards to that. So, in regards to student care services, Anne Marie, and I'm concerned about either myself, or I'm concerned about my friend. How can they reach out to you? What are some of the things that students need to do, Anne Marie?
Right. Very easy. They can call. If they Google UCF Student Care Services, you'll get right to our website. Our phone number and our email are on there, but the phone number is 407-823-5607. And that's 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. And then, of course, we have our email address, which is caremanager, CARE manager at ucf.edu. But all the contact information is on our website. So if they Google UCF Student Care Services, they'll get all the info right there. Just so we always put out that, reminder, we are not a 24-hour monitored crisis line. So if somebody calls us after 5 p.m., we don't have a physical person answering the phone after hours. So we do remind individuals, if they want to speak with a counselor immediately, then calling CAPS at their 2811 number, that will connect them 24/7. Or if it's a life-threatening emergency, 911 is the way to go, because someone will come out and address it right there. But if it can wait and be managed during regular business hours, call, email, we'll get you set up for a meeting.
Excellent. And Dr. Walden, one of the things I just wanted to
Yeah.
touch on is because there are a lot of different groups that I know CAPS has. So, can you talk about very quickly just
Oh,
some of
yeah.
the groups that students might be able to get involved with?
So currently, each semester we have between about 20, not 25 to 30 something groups. And what we mean by groups is when there's psychotherapy treatment groups. And we have each group is going to be the same set of, let's say, 6 to 10 people that start at the beginning of the semester, beginning of the group. It doesn't actually start at the exact beginning, but whenever the group starts, we get new members every semester. And then once we meet, you meet with a group facilitator, the group therapist, and make sure that it's a good fit. And then once we accumulate enough students to start, we do that group every week for 90 minutes from until the end of the semester. So it's the same 6 to 8 people or 6 to 10 people in the group, and they're all virtual right now. But they're fantastic. I do the Black Empowerment group. We have Sister Circle, which is for Black women. We have a racial healing group, but we have groups that are structured so you can learn skills, like an anxiety tools group, a depression tools group. We have a motivation group starting for the last 5 weeks of the semester, so it should be starting relatively soon. If you're struggling with motivation and you're trying to figure out how to just get through the remainder of the semester, this is a really great group to start. We have a group for people who identify as non-binary or trans. We have a group for students who identify as Latinx or even speak Spanish. We have groups for mindfulness, which is a really great technique, skill to learn to manage your anxiety. So we have a ton of groups um, for different. We have an empowering women's group for people who've been through trauma, for women who've been through trauma. So so we have a lot of different groups. If you just go to our website, again, UCF CAPS, just Google it. It's better than typing in the address, and click on our homepage. Across the title menu, you'll see groups and workshops. So you click that and you'll see the listing of, you just click one of the little hyperlinks and you'll see our list of current groups. Each semester it changes, and you'll see the time and date that it's offered, because it's always going to be offered at the same time and same day each week. And you'll see our group. So that's a great way. In order to do a group, you have to come and do what we call an initial assessment. This just gets you into our system. We get a kind of brief medical and mental health history. And then you set up a group screen with a group facilitator of the group you're interested in. So just know that you have to come in and do an initial assessment right now. But we also even have we have therapy assistance online, which is an online treatment. We even right now have a Tao for Anxiety group, which is fantastic. So you do the online sort of module with anxiety where you learn really cool things and do some exercises and videos. And then you meet as a group, everyone who's doing it once a week. And that's run by Dr. Rosie Garcia. And it's really fantastic. I've done the anxiety module as a therapist with clients, and it's really helpful. It seems like it would be, like, oh, I don't know, but it's really helpful. You get to practice progressive muscle relaxation, mindfulness, guided imagery. And it's in a chunk that's really doable. And you get access to all of that information in a really cool PowerPoint, not PowerPoint, but kind of display. So you get that information really easy to remember. So we have a lot of really great groups. If you're interested, just call our main number, go to our website, check out the groups, just click groups on our title menu, and you can see which one is there. We really, really want to promote groups. And if there's a group you're interested in, or something like a lot of our interns have come in and been like, no, I want to do an American Sign Language group or something. I'm sort of just making this up because there's students coming in and saying, I want this kind of group, or we have students who have a common kind of, like we had a DACA, or students from, I'm forgetting of the name of the school right now, but for the school shooting in the south, in the middle of Florida. You guys know what I'm talking
Parkland High
about?
School. Parkland High.
Yes, sorry. Yeah. So we had some outreach for that. And then I think we were thinking about possibly creating a group for survivors and people who are alumni for that. So we will create groups to fit the students who are coming in and what the student needs. So it's a really cool way, and it's very cost efficient. And I love running groups. It's a highly, highly effective experience. And right now, with the isolation that we're going through, it's really, really great way to get connection with in a safe and confidential way. So I highly recommend our group experience as well. Thank you for that question.
Well, thank you. We are out of time. I want to thank both of you, Dr. Walden and Ms. Palmer, for being with us today. It's very obvious to me we got to invite both of you back. There is so much information that you guys have talked to us about, and we know because we're working with our students on a regular basis. A lot of them are out there hurting, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to have both of these offices on because we want to provide them with information that's going to help them be successful at UCF. And so we want to
Mhm.
just thank you so much for being a part of our 106 in Mass podcast. Uh, don't worry, probably in the near future, we're going to invite you back again to talk more about how students can be successful from a mental standpoint. And then, Anne Marie, we'll talk more about some of the areas that your office can help. So, thank you once again. And we want to thank the audience for joining us today for 106 in Mass. And look forward to having you back again. And we'll have another interesting department from UCF that you can learn more information about. So, Dr. Walden, Anne Marie, thank you once again so much, and we will definitely talk with you again soon. So, for everyone, take care, be safe, and we look forward to seeing you again for our next 106 in Mass podcast. Thank you.
Bye bye.